Good evening, everyone. This is Pradeep, Ambassador of Change from GETI. And right now, you're on our disruptive education platform, provided to us by our mentor, Dr. Sunita Gandhi. On this platform, we have met with and interacted with more than 1,600 speakers on education from India and all over the world. And in this series, we have for you this evening Mr. Sharv Anand. He's an assistant professor for special education from the Manas Rachna University from New Delhi, and he has been with us earlier on this platform. And currently, he's doing webinars for schools in Abu Dhabi and for the NCERT. Welcome, sir. Good evening. You will be speaking to us
Thank you so
on empowering children with special needs, with special reference to the RPWD Act 2016. Thank you, sir. And if I've left out anything, please add to that for your introduction. Thank you, sir, and over to you.
Thank you so much, sir, for the welcome. So, as sir very well said, that the topic for today is inclusive education. So, first of all, what exactly inclusive education means? Inclusive education is a system of education. It is a situation. It is a system wherein students of all types, be with disability or without disability, they come together and they learn together. Now, by learning together, we mean that there will be no discrimination, no differentiation between the students from the part of the teacher as well as from the authority. So it is basically a system of teaching and learning which is suitably adapted to meet the learning needs of different types of students with disabilities. So in short, or in simpler words, inclusive education means that it is a teaching system which is adopted for especially for children who are who are disabled and who are not able to meet the learning needs. Now, learning needs means that there are a set parameters for everyone, for all the students who study in a classroom. So some students who are not able to meet those set parameters, those students we say that do for teaching those students and to bring them to the mainstream so that they can also get equal opportunity, equal education. We say that uh, there is this system of inclusive education wherein without any discrimination, without any disparity, we give all the rights and all the education to the children with and without disabilities with same affection, same love, and with equality. And it is also guaranteed by the Constitution and the RPWD Act 2000 of 2016, which clearly states that with children with disabilities, specifically, it has also mentioned 21 disabilities, of which there are it has also mentioned that of those 21 disabilities, no student will be debarred or will not or they will be given in education without any discrimination, and no school or education institute can say no to them for education. So now inclusive education has become a very important part of today's life. As we are moving towards more modernization, more generalization of the era, we see that we have become more considerate towards children with disabilities also. We have started to recognize their rights, we have started to recognize their needs, we have started to see them as human beings. So now when we are seeing them as human beings, it becomes a duty to give them the right also. When we are giving them the right, it is it is very obvious that we should give them the rights duly. So now in giving them the rights duly, what we need is that those students need to be empowered, and empowered in the sense that they know what they are getting. Like if the government has given some rights for them, it becomes the duty of the teacher as well as the as well as the institution to guarantee that the students are getting those rights. For example, the RPWT Act talks about giving the students with special needs equal opportunity in terms of curriculum and in terms of infrastructure. Now, infrastructure means that, for instance, there is a child who is on wheelchair. So for that particular child, the institute, the school should have amenities. School should have proper system so that that particular child is able to travel and is able to reach the school properly without any hindrance and is able to achieve the education without any hindrance, without any problems. So now, why is inclusive education important? Why do we need inclusive education? So there are certain principles on which inclusive education is based. So the first principle of inclusive education is access. Accessibility is the main aspect of inclusive education. So inclusive education or accessibility means that to enable persons with disabilities to live independently and to participate fully in all aspects of life. States, parties shall take appropriate measures to ensure to persons with disabilities access on an equal basis with others to the physical environment, to transportation, to information and communications. So what we mean is that accessibility should be there. As I talked earlier also, a child who is having disability, he or she should have proper accessibility in terms of transportation, that is from his home to the school or to any or the institute. The child should have proper transportation system so that there should be no difficulty. The child should not face any difficulty in reaching the school and getting the education. And as well as when we talk about the physical environment, it means the physical environment is the school of the child or the classroom of the child should be disabled friendly or should be barrier free. Now, with what do we mean by barrier free is that barrier, there should be no barriers so for a child with disability which would stop their child to coming to the school and getting education. So when there will be no barriers in terms of environment, transportation, and most importantly, when we talk about information and communications, that the student should be informed and communicate everything with respect, because it is their right to be informed. It is our duty to inform them, and it is their right to get informed. So now the accessibility should be provided to the public both in urban and versus rural areas. So accessibility or inclusive education is not only based for schools which are situated in cities or urban areas. It is also based for the schools which are located in rural areas, because children everywhere are same. They face difficulties, but those difficulties are not because of them. It is natural if they have any disability, and it becomes our duty to give them the right, to give them their rights which are guaranteed to them by our constitution. So moving on, accessibility, these measures which shall include the identification and elimination of obstacles and barriers to accessibility shall apply to, firstly, what conditions should the things be accessible to a child with disability. Firstly, buildings, roads, transportation and other indoor and outdoor facilities, including schools, housing, medical facilities and workplaces. So the buildings and roads should be made such a way that a person with disability can also travel smoothly. For instance, for a building to be accessible for a child with disability, the building should be uh, the building should have proper ramps. The building should have a lift so that if the classroom of the child is on a higher floor, the child can reach easily. If there are no lifts, then there should be proper that then should be some way or the other which the child will be able to reach the classroom without any difficulty. That so no but in buildings also we should be aware that the washrooms, the classroom should be at a height wherein the child with disability is able to enter. if the door of classroom is too hard for the child to open. For instance, there is a child with locomotor disability and the child is on wheelchair, so it will be difficult for the child to open the door of the class. So the door of the class should not be that hard, or should not be shut that hard that the child is not able to open it. And indoor and outdoor facilities means that there should be facilities such as toilets, or for instance the canteens, the laboratories. It should be in such a way that the child with disability is able to reach properly there. And schools or housing, even the child's house, should be made in such a way that he or she will not face any difficulty. In classroom, the switchboard should be at a height where the hand of the child will reach, and the door knobs, the handles of the door should be at a height wherein the child is able to reach for it and open the door. And then most importantly, the medical facilities in schools, in housing societies, it should be uh, user friendly, and so that a child with disability can understand, and that he can go to that place and ask for medicines which he or she will be needing. And in cases wherein the child himself is not himself able to reach the medical facilities, then there should be provisions to get it transferred to that child's home. And then simultaneously, when we talk about workplaces, by workplaces what we mean is that where an individual with disability is working, it should also be disabled friendly. The individual should not face any difficulties in terms of uh, adjusting socially, physically, because socially it becomes very important for that person to feel acceptable. If that individual feels that he's not acceptable, he or she will have difficulty in adjusting to the society. Now, second point, information, communication, and other services, including electronic services and emergency services. So, in schools, if for instance there are something is electronic devices are installed, or there are computer labs, so those should be easily accessible to children with disabilities also. And emergency services should be at an ease, or should as at an ease for children with disabilities also, so that they can also reach it quickly as and when they need it. So now, moving on, our next important aspect of inclusion is equity. So now, what does equity means? Equity means that equality and non-discrimination. State parties recognize that all persons are equal before and under the law, and are entitled without any discrimination to the equal protection and equal benefit of the law. So that means that in front of law, these the children with and without disabilities, or individuals with and without disabilities, are equal, and they will be treated equally. No discrimination will be done on the basis of their disability, and they will be given equal treatment in any case. No discrimination will be done. State parties shall prohibit all discrimination on the basis of disability, and guarantee to persons with disabilities equal and effective legal protection against discrimination on all grounds. This point is very important, because we see that the children with disabilities, individuals with disabilities, they face grave dangers to their life, because sometimes they are alone, and most of the times someone can harm them. So, for to protection against that type of discrimination, or protection against disability, or protection against discrimination, or protection against any type of harm which is been done to them, they should be given legal provisions equally, which are given to any other individual in the country. In order to promote equality and eliminate discrimination, states parties shall take all appropriate steps to ensure that reasonable accommodation is provided. So, herein the point of accommodation is also important. By accommodation, we means that if a particular individual is going to the judiciary to get justice, then he or she should also be accommodated properly and listened to properly by by the judiciary, by the judge, and given equal time to speak equally, to keep his views in front of the jury. Lastly, specific measures which are necessary to accelerate or achieve the equality of persons with disability shall not be considered discrimination under the terms of the present convention. So now there are certain specific measures which are or provisions which are given to children with disabilities. So these should not be considered in any condition that these are just meant for them to give the their rights. It should be taken as a duty to make these children also adjust in the society. So now moving ahead, how does equity work? So this picture clearly depicts that equality is that in the photo we can see that every person, there is a male, there is a female, there is a child, and there is a person with disability who is sitting on the wheelchair. They all are given cycles. There, that is equality. But the person with disability who is sitting on the cycle is not able to ride the bicycle. Now, what is equity? Equity means to to give to give equality as and when needed. So, according to the need of of the child with disability, we have accustomed the bicycle, and that person is also able to ride that cycle. So, this is what equity means: to provide equality as and when the child is and it is needed, and appropriately according to the condition of the child. Now, moving ahead, the next part is participation, that there should be full and effective participation and inclusion in society. Now, participation in which areas? Community, education, political and public life, cultural life, recreation, leisure, and sport. So, they should be given equal participation in community activities. In education, it is very important that they should be given equal rights to equal rights to get admissions, to get jobs based on their merit. Not they should not be discriminated or not given their rights just because they are having a disability. Then political and public life, they should be given equal chance. If they want to contest elections, they should be given equal chance to have their political views, and simultaneously they should have the right to have a good public life also, without any hindrance, any discrimination of any type. Now, moving on, the next principle, empowerment. Now, empowerment becomes very important. It is not only important that that we give them, we have understood that these are their rights. Now, it is our duty also to empower them also, which are their rights. Because if the child with disability knows what is his or her rights, then only the provision of inclusive education will be fruitful. So, empowerment through education, vocational training, advocacy, legislative reforms, and sensitization. So, education, first of all, that an education perspective, we should educate every person that these children or these individuals are also one like themselves, and they should not be discriminated. They should be allowed to study. They should be given proper education. Then vocational training, it means that not every child is meant for education. Basic education can be given to a child, but some some or the other point, they will lack something. So should be given vocational training so that they can also earn a living. Then comes advocacy. Advocacy means that we should act as their advocates also. We should advocate their rights. We should uh, advocate their rights in front of the society, in front of the parents, in front of the teachers, so that everyone knows what exactly their rights are. Then legislative reforms, that even though there are rights, though rights might be redundant, and they might not be giving them the fruitful results which are desired. So those legislative reforms should also be changed. And lastly, sensitization. Sensitization is that we should sensitize the whole area, the whole society about the needs of these students, what a disability is, disability, we should sensitize them first of all that disability is not a curse. It, the children are one, are like us only, and they should be accepted like other children are accepted in the school. Then nextly, relevance. That relevance, inclusion is relevant due to, why is inclusive education so relevant? Firstly, because it is a diverse nature of the because of the diverse nature of the society. The society is diverse, is diversified. We have people of every kind, every religion, gender, caste, class living in the society. Then facilitation of human rights. We have the provision of human rights. That is why it becomes very important to impart inclusive education. Then utilization of existing resources with reasonable modification. Now, what does reasonable modification mean? Reasonable accommodation means necessary and appropriate modifications and adjustments, not imposing a disappropriate or undue burden where needed in a particular case. That means that modifications should be done for for persons with disabilities, but it should also not be done in such a way that these individuals start, that others feel that their human rights are being violated. So it should be given in such a way that it should not become a burden on others, and as well as an psychological burden on that child with disability. Now, we have talked about what inclusive education. Now, the problem which is faced in, that is barriers. What barriers exactly do we face in education system? So RPWD Act defines barriers as any factor including communicational, cultural, economic, environmental, institutional, political, social, attitudinal, or structural factors which hampers the full and effective participations of persons with disability in society. So basically in communicational area, cultural, economic, environmental, all those hindrances, all those difficulties which a child faces he or she is in the society, or participating in political rallies, or having a political thought of his own. Ah, and most importantly, the attitude of his family, the school, and his peers, that plays a very important role. Now, this picture describes what barriers are. So, first of all, we can see a child with disability. So, for first of all, the major barrier we can see in the picture is physical barriers. That is, the child is not only able to enter the school. So, how will he'll be able to gather the knowledge or get the education? Then, the second most important the problem, that is the attitudinal barrier, whether people will accept the child or not. That has to be tackled. Then school, jobs, opportunity, full participation, society for all. These are also certain barriers which come after physical and attitudinal barriers. Now, lastly, how can we prepare schools for inclusion? Because it is very important to prepare the schools for a child with disability. What can be done is, we can make the school uh, to develop a positive attitude towards children with disabilities. We can train the teachers in having innovative teaching methods to facilitate, to inculcate the students with disabilities. Then we can have teacher training programs. In service teacher training programs, we can have, which which will help the teachers who are in service, who are there in the job. It will give them knowledge as to how to teach the students with disabilities. Then, most importantly, accessible environment. Make the environment so friendly that the child is happy to come to the school and attend the school. Teaching learning aids. Make the learning so interesting. So, and interesting can be made through teaching learning aids. That is, we should move out of the orthodox textbook way of teaching. Blackboard and chalk, that the existing way of teaching, we should move out of that. Then adapt involvement of stakeholders, parent and community. That is, we should involve the stakeholder, parent and community as much as possible. Because when the horizon of the stakeholders broaden, then only we can say that inclusive education can be achieved. And lastly, adaptive curriculum. We should make a curriculum which is equally adaptive for students with disabilities also, so that they are also able to study and gather the knowledge which other students are gathering. And lastly, what we see in him is not what is in him. What we see in him is what we have provided to him. So, by this, I would like to end the session saying that the more we provide, the more services we provide to children with disabilities, the more capable we make them. And the more capable we are making them, the more uh, interested those students will be to get knowledge, to get education. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for inviting me, sir.
Good evening, everybody. Sir, you were talking about schools, how they can prepare themselves with these children for special needs, basically. But don't you think we require separate schools for them because we really can't give them the kind of attention that they need?
Yes, sir. Basically, inclusive education depends on the severity of the child. Whether the
Yeah.
particular we give admissions to those children who we think can adjust in the schools. If
Yeah.
we feel that a particular child is not able to adjust in the school, he needs special attention, then we suggest that a child for some time should be admitted in a special school, and after
Mm.
he or she has achieved that particular milestone, then we can get him admitted in the inclusive school. It is all dependent on the IQ of the child and the level of the child as to what and the behavior problems of the child.
So, sir, I've been a principal for a long time, and
Yes, sir.
people who had physical problems, who were physically challenged, they were normally absolutely all right. It was the people who had problems with their ears and people who had uh, mental kind of things. They were very difficult to handle, sir. Maybe in the lower classes, yes, but as they became more and more senior, they really required very special schools. And unfortunately, there are very few such schools in India.
Yes, sir. That is a major issue which we are facing. That for these children, these types of children who have severe types of disabilities, which the schools are not able to accommodate. For them, there should be proper special schools which should accommodate them so that their difficulties also eased out. And for that purpose, we need more professionals also who can deal with those children, who can teach those children appropriately. Because in a general school, I understand that the teachers have a lot of work to do. Their own timetables are there, their own provisions are there. So, but it is it will be good that now the government has also initiated certain programs to teach the general teachers also certain ways, certain techniques to teach these children with disabilities in the same classroom. The children who have mild disabilities, who have mild behavioral issues, these children can be taught in the same classroom with certain interventions.
Yeah, okay. So there's a question. Is IEP the best way for an inclusive classroom education?
Sir, actually, your voice is breaking. I couldn't hear the question. Is
Is
IEP?
IEP the best way for an
Yes,
inclusive
sir.
classroom education by Isaiah Kyangwi? So I don't know what
Yes,
IEP is. I hope
IEP.
you know what it is.
Yes. IEP means Individualized Educational Program. It is a tool
Yeah.
which is used for children with disabilities, Herein, we make a plan for these children, and IEP is done one on one. We teach that particular child, we take one on one sessions, and we deal with those areas which a particular teacher in a classroom cannot take care of because of scarcity of time. For instance, in a classroom, a child is having issues with sentence formation, but a teacher does not have time to correct the sentences also, because he or she has to take care of the syllabus also. So at that time, what the special educator does is that he or she takes individual sessions of that particular child and covers the areas in which there is the child is lacking. So yes, inclusive education is a very important tool when we talk about inclusive education, as it helps in covering the areas which are lacked by the teacher or by the student.
Thank you. So it was individualized education plan program. Uh, Very difficult, I
Yes, sir,
think, for
individualized education program.
normal schools. So,
Yes,
good
sir.
evening, everybody.
But
Thank you for being with us.
the gradual
And
system is developing.
yeah,
Thank
and thank you so much, Mr. Sharv Datt Anand, for that talk. Uh, Very, very desirable talk on empowering children with special needs, with special reference to RPWD Act 2016, very relevant to India, of course, but okay for any other country. Thank you so much, sir, and good evening and goodbye,
thank you so
everybody.
much, sir.
See you again soon.